Claire, how are you?
I'm great.
You good?
I'm great.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course.
So, burlesque, and then you're a designer, and you're also stage production.
Yeah.
How did you get into burlesque?
All of that. It happened probably like just under 15 years ago. I kind of always had interest in burlesque as an art form, and I essentially just found people in Vancouver who were doing it already and took some classes, and then,
There's classes for burlesque?
Yeah, there's classes for burlesque.
Oh, wow.
So did a couple classes, and then I just fell in love with it, and it now kind of consumes my life. So it just sort of started out with like a small interest, and then now I basically shake my butt on stage full time. Were you like you like produce your own shows, and before you were doing that, before you got into burlesque, were you into that beforehand? No, I guess I just started out in burlesque for many years, and then it's only since like 2018 that I've been producing my own shows. But yeah, it just sort of evolved. I started out burlesque as like a fun thing to do, a fun hobby. I never really thought I would take it too seriously, and then it kind of snowballed, and now it's basically all I really care about.
Really?
In some ways, and now I produce shows.
And the show that's coming up on Paddy's weekend.
Yeah.
What's the crack?
Yeah.
What is the crack?
Well, okay, this is my show. It is a variety show, so it does have some burlesque, but essentially it was born out of me wanting to perform burlesque as Blind Boy.
Yeah.
And put on a show that showcased like Irish artists, for your day, for Paddy's Day, as like a fun thing to do.
100%.
Yeah.
And I like Irish people, we like drinking pints. So you're ready to split the G?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's cheers.
Cheers. Unreal.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes.
Oh my God.
I'm 2 for 2 this year.
Look at that.
You were close though.
I was close.
I'm 2 for 2. I'm going, my last podcast I got it as well. I'm a year and a bit into it. I want to be starting to get it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Me too.
Oh, just like the Irish culture, how did you even pick up Blind Boy as a character?
I found Blind Boy during the pandemic. I was listening to another podcast on Acast, and I got an ad for him. And I started listening. I quickly became obsessed with the podcast.
Yeah.
And just like fell in love with it. So I, went through all 200 or so episodes.
Did you go start to finish?
Right now I actually haven't, but at the beginning of the pandemic, I really got into it. I listened to about like 200 or 300, however many he had at the time. I did his whole catalog, I guess, and then essentially just thought this would be funny to do. It would be hilarious. And I live in Vancouver. There's a million Irish people around.
Yeah.
I feel like they would enjoy a show that's based, that's like an Irish themed show. I can do my Blind Boy act. This is going to be hilarious.
So developing your Blind Boy, doing beforehand. So to touch on, I was doing a small bit of research on burlesque.
Yeah.
And back as history goes, it was an actual Irish playwright, John O'Keefe, who kind of used satire.
Yeah.
In theatre.
Yeah.
And it kind of like paved the way for burlesque.
Okay, I did not hear that story, but I mean, burlesque has been around for
years and years,
like for a century or like quite some time.
Yeah.
Today, I guess today burlesque is considered many things, but essentially the commonality between like the different styles of burlesque is that it is like an art form of striptease and usually has some element of like humor to it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the through line for it. But essentially, burlesque can be
anything
like very different styles. It really can be a lot of like nerdy themes or glamorous themes with the corset and the gloves. Like it does span quite a bit of styling. But yeah.
So spanning all the way and then all the way to your character, Blind Boy. Mm-hmm. How did, like, once you were like infatuated with the podcast, how did you take that and get into, like, how did you inspire that towards your burlesque?
I just think that...
Because he's funny, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Blind Boy is a very funny character.
Yeah.
Just like, he is a very comedic guy. And I don't know, I just thought... I know he has quite a large following of... people from all around the world, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But I think, I think I was just inspired by his character, and I thought it would be funny to parody. It's really not that deep for me. I basically was like, I love this fucking guy.
Yeah.
He makes me laugh. And I would like to parody him as like an act of love for, who he is as an entertainer and for the audience that I think would enjoy this. Like it all kind of comes down to comedy and my appreciation for all the hours of podcasts and like entertainment that I've got from listening to his podcast. So that's sort of where it stemmed from, and I just thought this would be so fucking hilarious to parody this man.
So before we started filming, you were saying that you actually met him. So
I did.
Did you tell them about the show, or was this beforehand?
No, so I met him just recently when he was in town. I guess maybe it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or I guess 2023. I was like not trying to be seen by him. I was a little bit nervous about debuting this act back in 2022. And it was actually someone else that was in the show that had posted my poster, which had me in my like burlesque outfit with the mask on, his mask on. And obviously he was like entertained by it, reposted it for his Instagram and whatever. And like, basically since then he's been aware that I was performing as him. And then, basically just like I would just like tag him in things and whatnot, where people would tag him, and he's seen a little bit of what I've been doing over here, and I think I just basically DM'd him and was like, hey, can I
rob your identity?
I was like,
but no one knows his identity.
And and then basically was just like, I wanted to meet him essentially, and was just like, hey, can I meet you? And he was like, yes.
Was he cool?
So yeah, he was nice. Lovely. He was like very lovely, totally just like sweet to let me take photos with him, gave me a hug, and like just was like, nice. I know he enjoys it. Like I know he enjoys what I'm doing, but
that's super
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I could push it too far, but I don't know. Anyways, he still reposts my stuff, and he was like lovely when I did meet him. So
what does the passion or like the act of doing burlesque, how does it make you feel?
Pretty incredible. I think like for me, just performing burlesque in the kind of style that I do, which is oftentimes like really focused on like comedy or making the audience feel something. So like having a storyline, maybe doing something that's a little bit more arty or abstract. Like for me, it's like making the art and the process of making and designing my own costumes and then making my own dance and story, and like that whole process is like so exciting and stressful and therapeutic and like really touches my soul in some ways. So I just feel strong about the process. And like at the end of the day, like it does feel good to be validated with people laughing at your work or appreciating your work, and like to bring that bit of, positivity to a crowd when, like
just getting validation from it.
Well, it's more of the fact of like people can appreciate the work. It's not so much like I need the validation to survive. It's essentially like it does feel good to entertain people and to have people laugh at the art that you just spent like months creating. You know what I mean? What you mean. It's like it's I don't know. I'm really motivated by making people feel something, by comedy, and just like bringing a bit of lightness to
escapism.
A very fucking dark world.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that's really important. So that's really my motivation for it. And I've always been kind of like, not prudish, I guess you could say. I do feel like normalizing like nudity is a good thing, or like having different body types on stage, and being able to like go up and shake your ass on stage.
For you, when you were like growing up, was coming from a very Catholic
background.
Catholic. Like I don't like even talking about like girlfriends to your parents or something. We wouldn't, only if you're bringing her home or whatever. You know what I mean? When we're kids, no, it's fine. But like. Were you like going to nudist beaches when you were growing up, or like how did that all? Not
really. I just think like as an adult and as like someone who's very feminist thinking, I just think it's very like I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to like get on stage and shake your butt and look cute and like have different representation of different body types and different genders as well. Like up on stage shaking their ass. Like it is kind of a liberating, fun feeling. But I don't know. It's just if you got it, flaunt it.
There you go.
That's the thing, right?
Let's go.
I don't know.
You got it, shake it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We all just like, fuck it, let's go.
I know, it's a good feeling. It's fun. It's like lighthearted. Like a lot of what I do isn't like
what's the difference between burlesque and drag?
Well, I would say that they kind of flow together in a sense in terms of
Is burlesque more for
burlesque
a woman?
It was like generally like more of a but there's always been like trans folks who have been part of burlesque, or
because like in going back into the history of burlesque, it's women wearing the suit pants and the corset and kind of taking control, really, isn't it?
Well, I think like when it initially started, it was very much like parody of the upper classes, and very much like theatrical, and in the 50s and 60s and stuff, it was very much like the glove and gown and feathers and all this sort of thing, and like that kind of vibe. I mean, and that still exists today, as I mentioned. Like it really does span across the art form, or the art form does like span across different areas stylistically. So I think
as a production, and how like what's the like, how do you plan it out? Do you always just do one and the other, or is it always kind of like mix and match with variety?
Sorry,
depending on the show.
Yeah, I think it depends on the show. Do you mean like burlesque versus doing variety? Or it depends on the show. Like, what's the crack? My show is meant to be Irish performers. Okay. Right? So it's like, what can I get? Like, I got lots of musicians, you guys. There's not too many drag or burlesque performers, though I have had them in the show.
There's a couple of Irish
a million
drags.
musicians.
Let's go.
Yeah, we've got like definitely had Irish burlesque dancers and but musicians and other types of performances, right? Comics and what are like quite easy to find.
Yeah.
So it just depends. Like I generally do different themes for my shows. So I might do a show that's like I've recently done one called Movie Buff, which is a burlesque show specifically for cult movies, right? So that would be all burlesque. And then I've tried to do variety shows in other venues that would have a mixture of like circus and drag and burlesque and, you know, comedy or whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on where I think there's like the space for it. But I will say, like, I love working with other types of artists. Like, it is very inspiring, and I think, you know, one reason why I love doing What's the Crack so much, and it is my favorite show to produce. Because I get to work with so many different types of people. Well, there's that. Obviously, there's that. But just like the different types of artists that I get to work with, like, I really do enjoy the variety situation, and also then I get to be like the star burlesque performer.
There you go.
So,
yeah.
There's that as well, but mostly it's just like the fact that I get to work with different types of artists, and it's just kind of exciting for someone who's been doing this for like almost 15 years, right? To do more.
Bring me back to your first. Take your drink. Get that into you.
Yeah, delicious.
It's mother's milk, what we call it. Bring me back to your first show you ever did.
My first show was like a student showcase. It was with a company that doesn't exist anymore today, called Screaming Chicken Theatrical Society. They were like an East Van nonprofit, cool place to learn burlesque. And we used to have shows at the Wise Hall every month.
Where's that?
It's over on Adinak and like Victoria.
Okay, cool.
We used to have a show there every month. But I started, like, that's where I initially took lessons to learn to be a burlesque performer. And we had a showcase. If you're going in
lesson, just before, lesson one, what was the lesson?
Lesson one, how to put the tassels on and shake.
Yeah. No way.
Yeah. So you have to, you know, basically like move your shoulders back and forth like that. But that's lesson number one.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, you learn a bit about the history. You would learn about what burlesque really is, and you would learn a dance routine, and you would just go over the basics.
That's another thing that So like burlesque, with the history of burlesque, it comes from Italy, burlesco, which means trivia, right? And then another one that I looked up.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I'm like, I don't know if I heard that. I didn't know if I thought, anyways. Yeah.
But there was a famous burlesque dancer, and her name was Gypsy Rose Lee. And I was like, this is so cool that we're like linking all the, like, an Irish kind of theme coming through, and then your show is like, that's coming up as Irish. I was like, this is nuts.
It's, I don't know what it is. It's just, I'm here now. I don't know. It just kind of happened.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Go on, anyways. Your first show.
My first show was just a student showcase at the Wise Hall. And
did you already had a theme?
Routine.
Yeah, a routine.
Yeah. It was like essentially a program that I did that was like, 6 or 8 weeks or so, and you learn how to create your own burlesque routine, and then you would get on stage and you would perform it, and it was packed. Of course, as a student showcase would be, all of the friends come to support, and it was like, it was just a really good moment. It was really fun. I did kind of a comedic act.
What was your song?
It was like, what was it? It was like an instrumental version of this like song from, do you know the Cramps?
No.
The Cramps had like this radio show album where they just like did a radio show and they played a bunch of music. and it was just like this random song. I'm gapping on it. This is like going back in time.
No worries.
But it was just
is that a big part of the thing? Would be to get the right song?
I think so for some artists. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's something to be said about having a song that's like a banger that the audience is gonna love.
Yeah.
Versus having some shit music, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like it depends what you want. Like, do you want to express yourself and have some fucking artistic moment that may or may not resonate with an audience, or are you trying to be an entertainer? And that's like one of the interesting things about burlesque. Like, you know, a lot of people get into it as a hobby and as a moment in their life where they want to express themselves and try something new and shake their ass on stage and feel empowered and, you know, do the art form for various reasons. But then there's some of us people that got addicted or that are like, I want to be an entertainer and I'm going to think about the way that I present myself for the audience, right? And so it kind of depends, right?
And so you're a designer as well, so you design all your costumes? Yeah,
I do. It's funny, I actually make costumes for the broader community as well, but to be honest, I feel like my costumes get the least attention because I've been working on other people's costumes and making them look good more so than myself to a degree. So right now I'm really trying to like turn it back to myself and make some new stuff, and I'm making a new blind boy costume for this next show. So it's like,
what have you planned for that?
For my costume?
Yeah.
It's just like I had like gray and like crystals that were like light colors for his costume before, or for my costume before. But now I'm switching to black because, you know, he wears black. I just, you know, I literally threw this act together like very quickly, and I just had to make a costume, and I went with gray, like the grays, and I thought it looked good. It's worked for like, you know, 4 other performances, but I feel like to make it more authentically blind boy, I'm gonna like go to town the next few weeks here and make my costume all black. So like a corset and, you know, some other bits and stuff.
And there is the glamorous to it, right?
Yeah. I mean,
you couldn't go out and literally just like he wears what we would call the fat man pants, which is tracky bottoms and t-shirts.
Yeah. Well, it's the glamour. I mean, like, that's the whole, like, dichotomy, I guess, is, like, some fucking man with a plastic bag on his head is going to be this glamorous persona. I'm going to channel his vibe in a more glamorous way, and that's, like, where I think the comedy really comes in, right? I'm just going to make this thing. I just got some materials, and I'm going to work pretty hard over the next few weeks leading up to this, but I really want to debut a black costume because I just think that's going to elevate the act more. Yeah.
Right. Oh my god. Oh my god, yeah.
So delicious.
And you do other shows, you do like a Seinfeld show?
Yeah, so I do a Seinfeld themed burlesque show as well. I perform in drag as Jerry Seinfeld, so I like made like a full body hair suit.
I've seen it.
Which it's pretty repulsive, right?
But it's like what?
Yeah, that's me under there. Again, it's like my motivation for that is just like,
that's a whole suit.
Well, it's like a bodysuit, and then I made like these stockings that go up to like under my butt, and then they're just like
it's really hairy.
Yeah.
It's like 40-year-old version before he gets waxed.
Yeah, it's definitely that's the vibe I was going for, because it's more funny, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's quite that hairy, but you know, it's funny. So, I just have been doing that for several years. That's also done 5 rounds, I think. It's quite a successful show. People love it. People love Seinfeld. I mean, it's a classic TV show. You know, whether it is like, you know, totally.
Can you do a Seinfeld impression?
No, absolutely not. not without my hairsuit anyways. But it brings me a lot of joy. It's always been like a fun show because there's never ending amounts of inspiration for it, because there's such a like vast amount of Seinfeld references and episodes that you can play off of. So there's like endless material for that show. So every show has new acts and new
that's,
themes,
yeah.
and you know.
And that's not a solo show. You do that with other characters.
Yes,
as well.
of course, right?
Yeah.
It's like the TV show. I usually cast, like, there's the main four, and then I have like the side characters, and yeah, it's definitely a fun time. It's a crowd pleaser, I'll say that. Seinfeld fans are always like amazed by the weirdness from it. It's definitely, it's weird. It's weird, it's sexy, it's comedic. It's like, yeah, pretty special.
If someone's never been to drag, what should they expect when you're going into it? Not drag.
Burlesque?
Burlesque.
Yeah, well, I mean, Seinfeld is like, I'm dressing as a man in drag, like, you know. So I consider like my Seinfeld Burlesque show is also a lot of characters that are drag characters as well too. But I mean, you should expect that it's gonna be entertaining. I think that's, you know, just expect that it's gonna be fun and entertaining.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna see. Usually, I think in most shows, you're gonna see a certain level of nudity. You're gonna see some comedy. Hopefully, you're gonna see some variety in the types of acts you'll see. I can't speak for every show, but I think like the art form is lowbrow.
Yes.
You know, it's not meant to be a highbrow. Like, you know, there are people who are very glamorous and very well put together and have beautiful like rhinestone costumes, and that is considered like a little bit more high scale. However, the art form is lowbrow. There's always some tongue-in-cheek
and puns.
Flavor to it, and like, you know, visual puns, I guess you could say, like, you know, that storytelling. It's cheeky, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what you can expect from most shows.
Yeah. Claire, it's been a pleasure having you on. What's your handles on Instagram?
I've got
TikTok.
Clare with no I, Clare.Voyeur, Voyeur, and then Clare.Voyeur.presents as well.
And that's your production company?
Yeah.
Unreal. And when is the show? March
15th. Saturday, March 15th at the Rio Theatre. I'm doing my What's the Crack show.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hilarious. We've got the older singers. We've got musicians. We got a couple of strippers doing a duo together.
Yes. I know them lads.
You know these girls? Yeah, we've got them doing a very fun duo.
Yeah.
You know, I've got myself. We've got a couple comedians. It's going to be a good night. We're going to do a short film as well. There's a lot to it. It's really fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Cheers. And I look forward to it.
Yeah, thank
Go
you
on, get your tickets. And we'll see you in the next one, guys.
Thank you. Cheers. Yay!